You flaming idiot! Take this! Feel the power of my magic!
悪いでしょう。
Hello, friends. Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and NBs to Warui Deshou's Stream of Thought for Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken, the final, the last time we'll be visiting with our favorite trio. You know what? No, our favorite quartet.
Thank you. I was about to say that I was going to get very indignant all of a sudden then.
Our favorite quartet, our favorite film club, our lovely, lovely ladies who are passionate about anime, who make anime, and who show us the process of making anime, who show us
the joy
who show
of
us
making
life,
anime.
Shadon, who show us life, and all that it contains, all the myriad lessons that we can learn and things we could apply, mottos, principles to live by. I'm the subtle doctor. I'm going to lead us through this. I'm going to attempt to, in these trying times, do this double shot of Eizouken 11 and 12, along with my friend, my ally, my nakama, the hardest working man in pod business, Shadon.
You know, I'm just going to come out and say it. This show, now that's concluded, it has slid into my top 3 anime of all time. I don't say that lightly, but I mean it.
Just coming out the gate with the takes.
Yep. I mean, you know, Penguin Drum, number 1, still, obviously. Land of the Lustrous, number 2, obviously. But number 3, nope. That's it now. Eizouken's in there because when it comes to, like, Penguin Drum, I adore that show as like a work of art, like, because there's so much to unpack from it. It just keeps on giving and giving and giving and giving the more you plummet. For Land of the Lustrous, I appreciate it both as a technical marvel and also just for the raw emotion it brought me, and also just for being a very holistic work where it was also funny but very like melancholy and very insightful. For Eizouken, I think this completes the trinity for me, because Eizouken is pure joy. It's unrestrained joy, but it's also got lots to say about the creative process, about team working, and even about, like, you know, how we as people, like, you know, can create things and like the adversities we face. And that's particularly true as we learn in these final 2 episodes, where we learn the origin story I did not expect to see of Kanamori and Asuka's becoming comrades, not friends, comrades, as it were. So yeah, I am very, very comfortable slotting this show into my top 3 to make the holy trinity of great anime that I personally adore. Holy shit, I'm so, you know what? I'm gonna say as well, I'm sad to see this show end, not least of which is because we need all the rays of sunshine we can get right now. But I'm also glad it is ending, and you might think to yourself, whoa, you did not just drop that hot fire on my lap. I'm like, no. Hear me out. Don't come, like, you know, fly through my window, security club, to, like, you know, tase me or anything. Please don't do that. Don't send the drones after me. Because I think that with Eizouken, like, you know, I could see it eventually wearing out its welcome, as anything would, by going on in perpetuity. Now, granted, that means that doesn't mean there aren't shows that can do that, like One Piece, for example. Or even Gintama, which went on for like hundreds of episodes before it finally concluded. But I think the way that it has ended, which I will discuss in detail later, I think that it went out on just the right note at just the right time, where it left us wanting more, but also left us immensely grateful for what we did get. So yeah, I'm all smiles thinking about this show, and I'm gonna keep on smiling as I think about it in the months to come. So from me to you, Masaki Yuasa, Science Saru, Young Choi, and all the others, thank you. Thank you for what you've given us. Even before everything that was going on right now, like, this show was just absolutely wonderful. It made me smile, it made me laugh, it made me think, it made me want to start writing, and it stoked that fire in me. I cannot show my gratitude enough. Like, words are inadequate, for this kind of thing. The only reason it's not higher is because of the ridiculously, great company that it keeps in my own personal top 3. I mean, that's some heavy hitters there. But hey, I'm glad we got it.
Yeah, that was well said. Thank you for those heartfelt words. And thank you as well from me, Science Saru, Yuasa-san, Young Choi, and everyone else involved making this. It has been delightful. And as you said, particularly now, because, while these episodes that we do on Stream of Thought are meant to be, they are meant to be, I don't know if evergreen is the right word, but I think that they're meant to be, you could come back and listen to them later if you were following along with the show. They're not, current events based. They're very much, about the show exclusively, and, but also they are a time capsule in some ways, too. That's a lot of, why we do the summaries for archival purposes, and sort of adjacent to that, I just think, for anyone listening to this years out who has unearthed this MP3 file, stumbled onto our pod without knowing when this was from or what the hell is happening.
It's on my Saitama-shaped USB drive that's just been excavated by aliens from, Venus or something. This incredible.
We're recording this, during the global COVID-19 novel coronavirus pandemic, as most people listening right now.
I really wish it was a very novel virus. That would have been great, but no.
That would be,
we had to get the novel variety. Thanks a bunch.
And so, because that's the case, a lot about our life is different and has changed. A lot more stress is part of our day-to-day right now as we learn to figure out how to cope. And so, the fact that we do have something in our lives that is pure joy, like the show, is amazing. It's a godsend right now because of how joyful it is, and how warm and the camaraderie and everything else on display in the show it's just a life-affirming kind of show. And that's, I think, always good entertainment, but definitely timely. And by the way, because of COVID-19, I am located elsewhere than my usual recording spot. I am at home, and thus there are lots of sounds and noises that you may be hearing on my end. You may or may not know this. If you only listen to our Eizouken shows, this will be the first time you're hearing this message from me. So apologies on the front end that it's going to sound weird and unusual.
You're worried about nothing. I mean, that BBC reporter went viral when the kid came in through the front, through the door in his bedroom. It's fine. This. I mean, come on. Kanamori has taught us. If she has taught us anything, it's you've got to use whatever advantage you can muster. In order to generate views and go viral. I'm just saying.
Maybe we should come up with a new term for going viral now. The idea of becoming popular or something being looked at a lot. I feel like it's now time to move on from the phrase going viral. something mass market. We'll figure it out. Say mass appeal in the same way. Say mass way. That was shit too. Oh crap! Right, we'll work it out off pod, folks. It'll be fine. Yes.
But if I may just add something to you. Sorry, go on.
Before you add, I need to question you about your top 3. 2 questions. One, no, welcome to the NHK. Is it sort of
I still haven't rewatched it, so I can't keep holding on to a memory, you know, something that may not be necessarily relevant to me anymore. That is, by the way, still one of my projects I have planned for the future, to rewatch the show with the knowledge I have now and the mindset I have now, which actually will tie into the thing I was going to say in addition to what you've said. But I'll come back to that. Did you have anything else to say about myself?
My second question was, why are you committing the crime of leaving Macross Frontier off your top 3? Don't say it's 9 out of 10. I don't want to hear about some objective rating nonsense. We're talking about personal favorites. Why is Macross Frontier
it's
not in your
still got
top 3?
problems. I'm sorry, it does.
So do the other show. So
Not
every
to the
show
same
has
degree.
Problems. What?
It's not in the. I'm sorry, it's not in the top 3, man. Look.
Criminal. Thought criminal.
Look, if I'm going to be damned, I'm going to be damned for who I am, right? So, I'm afraid you're just going to have to take the L on this one, Doc. I'm sorry.
It's not me you're hurting. It's Cheryl Nome.
I've got two figures of her on my shelf, right?
Exactly. You have no figures of Foss or...
that's going to change eventually.
Senryaku girl.
That's going to change as well. Like, Himari's going to be up there, Foss is up there. It's all going to change. I promise you that. I actually want Penguin Drum plushies, by the way, for my sofa. But anyway, although then again, maybe appropriating a penguin symbol that is associated with the death cult in that show is possibly not the best idea. Anyway,
no, just get the little tiny, like the guys that wander around and spray each other in the face.
That's what I mean. They are still the penguins, though. They are still intrinsically tied to that. And this is turning into a Penguin Drum podcast. Shit, I'm gonna have to save that for a different time. Okay, right. So the point I was going to make, though, and this is why funnily enough, you mentioning Welcome to HK is so cogent, actually. It would be remiss and disingenuous of us not to mention the times in which we have, consumed this media and what it means to us as a result. We don't watch things in a vacuum, We don't watch things without some sort of understanding of the outside world or even our own moods, our own lives, building into that. This is why Welcome to HK was my top anime for such a long time, because it was, at the time I watched it, very important, very meaningful to me. Like, it, helped me understand my own place in the world, my own life, and also what I could have potentially been had things been a tiny little bit different. But that was a long time ago when I watched that. I'm a different, well, not necessarily a different person, but I'm a different version of me, So that's why it doesn't quite hold the same weight in my mind anymore, especially since I haven't watched it in so long. Whereas Land of Lustrous is a much more relevant work for me recently. Penguin Drum in itself is just timeless work of art, and Eizouken, we've watched it during a pretty rubbish year, all told. So no wonder we like it.
What a bad year! My goodness. And it's have we even? I don't even think we've rounded the quarter poll yet. We're almost. No,
there. Can we save scum this? I'm just saying.
We should. We need to go back to January. Quickly make some different choices.
go to last checkpoint. That would be great. Okay, so yeah, I'm unreservedly. I think this show is great, and when the opportunity presents itself, I'm going to pick up the manga. By the way, because I want to. Because while I'm happy with where the anime ended, like with Land of the Lustrous, I also want to kind of get more, but in a kind of compartmentalized space in my mind. So seeing the manga itself, I think would definitely be worthwhile.
Totally. So are you ready to take the plunge into covering the episodes?
Oh, hell yes.
So
do we want to cover the polls from last time?
We should, and we should say that there will be no polls from this time because this is not a live stream. So kind of the fun hook of, doing the live update on them is not present. And I might even still have felt differently and wanted to include them if this wasn't the end. But when we're starting a new thing, if we have polls that weren't responded to live, like going back and looking at those, just a lot of reasons, I think, to not have them this time. But it doesn't mean that we have less love for the show. It's not against anything against the show. It is to do with circumstances.
Exactly. And besides, the only poll I put up for either of these two episodes is, was Kanamori using an angle grinder the best thing you've ever seen in your entire goddamn lives? And there would only be...
That was so good.
I was dying with laughter at that. Like,
Thuggerina.
As soon as she kicked the door, I was just like... It was just so good. But anyway...
Thugbalina. I think
Fugbalina. Fugbalina, yeah.
My goodness.
Little moments, man. Just
Why?
little things that make you smile.
Why?
Cozy, by the way, Cozy Asakusa at the end of episode 12 is such an amazing mood, and I wish to replicate that someday. I've never seen someone look so comfortable in an animated show. But I will get to that, because I want to talk about that moment later. Anyway, so, polls. This is for episode 10, by the way. So, the first poll goes something a little bit like this. Is the school right to demand the Eizouken not make any money from Comet A or elsewhere? 11% of you said yes. Please, show you're working on this one. Please explain yourselves.
See me after class.
Yes, I will be there with my giant red Sharpie, and I'll be doodling on your face. But otherwise, 89% of you had the right idea and said, no, they are perfectly within their rights to make as much money as they want from Comet A or elsewhere. Poll number 2. Which of the following 3 options is best? Kanamori, coming in at 6%, Minimori, coming in at 22%, and Kanamori, coming in at 72%. I would have, if I'd known, added in Fugbalina as a 4th option, but sadly, like I say, we can't save scum this and, do things differently as much as we would like to.
Lack the foresight.
Oh, man. Poll number 3. Is there ever a bad time to reference the Akira bike slide? 65% you said, hell no, do it all the time. And 35% you said, only went into DMs. I'm sure that someone on TikTok has done that at least once. And you know what? Maybe I'll have to try it myself someday. Although knowing my luck, I'd probably end up completely, breaking every bone in my body and also wrecking my bike. Also, I'd have to get a bike first. So that's kind of step 1. Fundamental problem here with this plan. Poll number 4. Should the second half of the episode have ended on an actual conflict with a resolution between Kanamori and Asakusa, given that the former was continually getting distracted? I actually probably should have written the latter here, because I got them the wrong way round. I was tired. I'm always tired. That's my excuse. Anyway, 35% you said yes, there should have been an actual conflict that got resolved as a result. But 65% you were totally cool with it as presented. And you know what? I'm fine with it either way, to be quite honest. I personally prefer the conflict, but that's very much your mileage may vary on this one. And poll number 5, and this is something that I will be bringing up very soon with my own thoughts on it. Should Domeki have finally been inducted into the Eizouken and therefore would have also appeared in the OP along with the trio? 89% you said abso-bloody-lutely, and 11% of you have no souls, as confirmed by the scientific process through this poll, and said no, she should not be inducted into the Eizouken. I don't know how one decides that, but again, please show you're working. Red Sharpies will be at the ready.
Here's the argument, right?
Oh man, here we go.
If I'm going to be that guy and argue
that
for the
guy.
other side, one, she must maintain membership in the Sound Club for the Sound Club to be a thing, which the Eizouken need and she needs. And also, I believe there's a clause at school that says you cannot be a member of 2 clubs. Now, the poll was not about rewriting the rules. If we want to rewrite the rules, the school rules need to be rewritten in many ways, as we talked about last time. But as constituted, I'm not sure that she could and remain president of the Sound Club and also have the Sound Club still exist. And then there's the whole deal of I think Alexander brought it up about considering her feelings and her wanting to remain out of the limelight. Being in the OP, she's just in the background behind the camera doing the mixing where she wants to be. So I think those will be good arguments for it. But having said all that, I mean, she really should be in the OP. Let's not play around.
Yeah, exactly. All right, then. So that ends the polls. As and when normal service resumes, we will be doing polls again, folks. Or maybe even do it, in this new temporary format as we go forward. Because we can confirm that, of course, we will still be doing Stream of Thought. Stream now being encapsulated in quotation marks, of course. On a new show when it starts airing. But we'll reveal that at the end of this podcast. So it's not quite business as usual, but business is still ongoing here at Warui Deshou. That I can assure you of.
Business is still ongoing. Yes. The non-essential business of WD still operating, working remotely for your benefit. Okay. So here's how we're going to do this with the episodes. We're not going to spend a lot of time on summaries because we've got a lot of ground to cover. So what I'm going to do is read the Wikipedia summary for each episode, and as I get to each episode, then I will talk about the episode director rather than doing them both at once. And then we'll get to our big picture opinions and discussion points. So, episode 11, Each Other's Existence. Sorezone no... Gosh, that's a mouthful. Sorezone no Sanzai, I believe it is.
Listeners, please comment if Doc pronounced that correctly so I can send him a $5 via PayPal. Because that did sound tricky. I mean, if I, said that, I'd probably end up accidentally mangling my words into Japanese and therefore making them some really, really awful insult. Which makes me glad I am currently stuck inside, actually. Can you imagine me out and about trying to say that out loud? Probably get me arrested.
If it was in English, it would just be sore zone. But that's not how the language works. So it's like sorezone. But I had to really look at the word to get that one for whatever reason. That was I tripped over that one. But
I had a sore zone once. It was in my head, and that was after I drank an entire bottle of vodka.
Sore zone, no sanzai. So Atsuko Tonomizu is the episode director for this episode, and they actually directed episode 2 of the show. So they've got a couple of episodes, the one right before the end and the one right after the beginning. So
poetic.
Yeah. Funnily enough, they also did the same for an anime called "I'm Being Harassed by the Sexiest Man of the Year."
What?
Yep. Daikaichi.
That's a show.
Show. It's called Daikaichi. I'm Being Harassed by the Sexiest Man of the Year -TV. Received high marks on Anime News Network. Aired during the fall of 2018.
Wow.
Gee, I wonder what service. I can't really tell from this page what picked it up. I think it's a Funimation one, though, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, but but other CV items for Tonomizu-san. Let's see. Nothing that I'm kind of scrolling through that I know of too much, actually. I'm sorry. We've got some crossover with Second Stream, my friend. Because
what?
This person directed episode 4 of The Case Files of Jeweler Richard.
My God.
Yes. I don't even remember what episode 4 was in particular, but it was a good episode, because that was a run of quite good episodes.
Now I just want the Jeweler Richard Eizouken crossover where Kanamori's just trying to get a gem evaluated for money. You just see it like this, Richard and Seigi, they're trying to impart some wisdom on her about her character, and she's just like, yes, I get you, but how much is it worth? But no, Kanamori-san, you don't understand. This thing is priceless to your history as a person. No, I just want the money. That's all I want.
There's no such thing as priceless. You fool. Also, Tonomizu was production assistant on the first Danganronpa anime. Which is, from what I've seen, and I've seen a bit of it, a faithful adaptation of that game. Nothing more, nothing less. So, here we go with the summary of this episode. And now we enter the segment Doc reads to you, because I'm going to read the Wikipedia. And, gosh, so this already, they're using Asakusa's first name. They're using everyone's first name. And that's, definitely, I'll try to adjust mid-flow as I can. But if I say Miruri, or Tsubame, or Sayaka, just know I mean Asakusa, Mizusaki, and Kanamori, respectively.
Oh, good. I didn't want to start offering my thoughts about Madoka Magica, because I haven't watched it recently.
No? Okay, so here we go. Asakusa continues to struggle thinking up a story for the anime while the security club forcefully shuts down another school club working with Eizouken to copy DVDs.
The transcripts club, no less, because you know what's funny? They mention how they were, not involved in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Which and you know what how timely that was, because there was recently revealed that the Dead Sea Scroll fragments in some, I think it was a Washington DC museum. I could be wrong on this. This is me going from my memory. It turns out they're all as fake as a $3 bill. I just found that amusing.
But they find something. Is Hammurabi's code older than the Dead Sea Scrolls? It's quite old.
Please chime in.
They're both real old.
This is why we're doing an anime podcast and not a history one.
Yeah, I know. I used to know this, is what's sad. I used to be quite good at history. But I was so good at history in high school that I got all this credit and didn't have to take history in college. So I didn't, and I forgot everything.
Wow, how ironic.
Yes, indeed. Very ironic. Okay, so... the Eizouken advisor plays the handheld video games and encourages the club to relax for a bit. So, did you notice the variety of systems? I saw a Game Boy, of course. He was holding that up.
He was on his phone previously.
Was there also a Vita? Or a GBA?
Something to that effect, yeah. It was either that or it was just his cell phone.
It was very ovular, because there were like at least 3 in that little bin. Anyway, so I'm gonna say
could be worse. Could be worse. Could be an N-Gage.
A Wonder Swan. Okay. So he plays those games and encourages the club to relax for a bit. Asakusa and Mizusaki decide to goof off near a waterway in town because, they take the guy's advice and they want to have their work feel like play in order to stimulate their imaginations and gain some inspiration. Asakusa falls into the riverbed before Kanamori drags her out. All the while, the trio are trailed by Domeki as she records the sounds they make. The
sound of a kappa, no less.
Yes,
I knew it.
Yep.
I mean, Asakusa is actually eating a cucumber at times. She's a kappa. I mean, let's be fair, we've jokes about the Sarazamai crossover. If Asakusa was turned into a kappa by Keppi, I bet you she would look no different as a kappa.
She'd just look greener, and that's it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, have you seen her kappa-like grin later in this episode though? When she just
it was very good.
And that was great.
It was so good. The next day, the school's vice principal cuts off Eizouken from the other clubs. They leave this note, she does, on the door of these clubs saying, "Remember, no funds from outside of school." And that puts people in a bind. Asakusa and Mizusaki take a train to visit Kanamori at her home because she's sick. And so Asakusa...
We will make no timely jokes about this, by the way.
No, I just can't believe that she took the morning off. She had that line where she's like, "I guess I'm human after all." It's like, what?
I did believe
Bonkers.
that. Bonkers,
I tell you. It's all according to plan. There must have been a reason she wasn't really sick. So let's see, where was that? Asakusa has a flashback on the train to when she met Kanamori in middle school. They were both loners for different reasons, but formed a codependent relationship. Not a fan of the word codependent here. I'm going to say that they use the word they coexist. I feel like that is more apt.
Camaraderie, I would say.
Yeah, codependence to me denotes an unhealthiness, which I don't ascribe to this relationship. It's mutually beneficial. And they're friends. I know we could play around, and we're not friends, come on. And it just means that they're great friends. They're friends. So while visiting Kanamori in her sickbed, Mizusaki tells Kanamori about the situation. And Kanamori shows that her efforts have generated enough media coverage. This was great. that the school would only embarrass themselves by shutting down the Eizouken's project. It's like
backsmith's to a corner. Like, you know, you don't take on a chess master and expect not to lose all your pieces, you know.
I know. It's true. Like, in some way, like, in other contexts, I think I would have a beef with the show and say, like, this was a really convenient way for you to get out of this actual problem. But it's Kanamori, and it makes sense. And it's really, you know, the groundwork for that move has been laid. So and for the kind of show it is, and these characters, it's a great move. It makes perfect sense. I'm down with it. Mm-hmm. Let's see. I'm trying to find my place. Where did I leave off, Shadon? They were loners for different reasons. Kanamori shows that her efforts have garnered enough media coverage the school would embarrass themselves by shutting down the project. Then Asakusa reveals she thought up the story that tied all her previous wanderings together about a war between humans and kappas. Is kappas really the plural of kappa? I feel like it's like fish. I feel like kappa is plural as well. Would you?
I thought kappa.
This should be a poll.
I thought kappa was that emote from Twitch. So, you know, I was just waiting to see flying kappa faces shooting lasers. But, well, that's why Twitch makes Eizouken is not a thing, thankfully.
Kappas sounds like not real. I feel like the plural of kappa is also kappa. But listen, what?
Kappa's also the verb, the noun, the adjective, the adverb. It's the Swiss
kappa.
Army knife.
With this new direction, Eizouken comes closer to finishing the anime, but Domeki later reveals that something or someone replaced the entire audio track with a strange piano tune. And that is the end of episode 11. It ends there with we get a cliffhanger on a crisis. Do we want to talk about 11, or do you just want me to proceed?
We'll proceed, because we'll probably do a bit back and forth on our talk. Because the thing is, I think some parts of 12 are very distinctly tied to episode 11. So it would probably best if we do them both as one chunk.
Okay, that makes sense for me too. So episode 11 is Shibahama UFO Wars, or Shibahama Yuto Taisen. So, directed by Keisuke Inoue, a name that is familiar to me. I'm not exactly sure why, because I did not check the CV before this episode. I'm looking at it live on the air. Keisuke Inoue.
You were pen pals as kids.
You're right. That's it. That's 100%. It. I have no idea how I know this person from, because so they've done plenty of storyboarding. They've been director of a couple shows, as well as done episode direction. They were director of My Next Life as a villainess. All routes lead to doom! !
Well, I should hope so if you're a villainess. It would be a bit boring if it just led to, like, you know, bureaucracy and tax returns.
If you're an id Software developer, all roads lead to doom.
Well, eventually.
Yes.
Unless you want to start making Rage, which, please don't.
all roads lead to Daikatana.
Man, and I thought we were in the end times. That's worse by a long shot.
It's very bad. Also, they were the director, storyboarder, did a lot of work on something called Ao-chan Can't Study. Again, another show with an exclamation mark. So it should be Ao-chan Can't Study. That's how you should say it. I don't really see anything else that I don't know why the name is familiar to me. But also Schumann Sample, as every single person who's ever worked on Eizouken is involved in Schumann Sample.
You know, like now that you mentioned you know them from somewhere, all I can keep thinking of is the reused plot element from Guilty Crown and a million other anime are like, you're this like super cool dude, but we were secretly childhood friends and you were the cool one, really. That's it, Doc. You've got amnesia. That's what it is, and you're going to reveal your secret. You're going to reveal the secret power deep within your hand.
Man, I hate that. That was so dumb. Please leave that buried from now on. Don't remind me of it. Okay. So, summary for this final episode that aired yesterday as of this recording. After finding out their musician changed the main track at the last moment and no one checked, Mizusaki begins to panic. And boy, she really does panic.
She's in a flap.
This is a good couple minutes of her just like yelling and being mad. With time running out, Asakusa proposes changing the end of the anime to match the music track that they have. Pardon me. Took a sharp intake of breath accidentally there. And keeping the dance party scene as a DVD extra. The look Kanamori gives her at that moment. So good. The headlock, that whole scene, so good. After working heavily through the night to finish their tasks, and by the way, the way that they're all drawn early in the morning when they're going over the final edits at the computer is harrowing. They look like, I don't know what's it. They look like old beaten up leather. They just look dead.
I mean, Asakusa's early bedhead, in I think it was episode 4. Mm-hmm. That was bad, but this was worse. This was beyond where I was previously. That's pretty funny. And this was like,
ooh. They look like they've been. They look like the POWs they're depicting.
Oh my god, Jesus!
So, they work through the night to finish. Eizouken manages to finish their anime, and Kanamori takes extreme measures to get their DVDs printed. Extreme measures being, as you said, using a small handsaw. What was it called?
Yep. Angle grinder.
A what grinder?
Angle grinder.
An angle grinder? Just through the doorknob. So she takes the extreme measures to make sure they get printed. We love the extreme measures. Big pro extreme measures involving Sayaka Kanamori. The trio manage to sell out their DVDs, and after the convention ends, they decide to watch their own finished product, Shibahama UFO Wars, and the show ends there. Or does it? The show ends, but the story of our lovely trio goes on. And that's Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken.
What a... God. Well, I'll get into it in a moment, but firstly, we do have a Patreon question. Now, before we begin, I want to just quickly give a shout out to our patrons for a couple of reasons. I actually posted recently about the whole situation that's currently going on at the moment, and the understanding that, times are tough. Can't expect people to, be putting money into a podcast in general, especially not our own. But people still are. That hasn't actually changed in the slightest, which is... I don't really know what to say about that, to be quite honest. I'm again finding words inadequate to convey my feelings on this matter, other than thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Look,
and
all right, look, drinks on me. Drinks on me when this is all over, right? We'll all somehow get together and just get absolutely, completely trolleyed. Every single one of us.
And things may change. Later on for you, this is a fluid, ongoing situation. And again, if a week from now, 2 weeks from now, a month from now, because of all this economic uncertainty, you need to pull the plug, totally, it's fine. It's totally fine. And, because of what we're doing right now, we haven't, done an official policy yet, but I think that we're going to start making some more stuff we do free, just because things are so crazy. And if you're a patron, you will still get exclusive stuff, not least of which is everything that we got going on in Discord, which is so great. I love our Discord so much, but yeah, so changes will be afoot in that regard on our Patreon. Look out for that. And But also, like, thanks for sticking with us for now. Like, you guys are amazing. We love you all a lot. Can I say something before you do Mirror's question, Shadon?
Hell yes.
So I just walked into my daughter's room. With the magic of post-production, you will not have known that I left. But at some point, while we've been recording, I had to step away. And my daughter was watching Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken. She just started to watch it. Yeah.
Was that completely unprompted?
Well, I've been telling her about it off and on, saying, like, when you get some time, you should watch this because, she, like her mother, is an artist, a budding artist, and she's drawing all the time. Oh my god,
she's going to love this show then.
And yeah, she was halfway through episode 2, and when I went in her room, she told me, she's like, Dad, I deeply regret not starting watching this earlier.
Oh my god. Well, that's so wholesome. Oh my god. I can feel my heart beating again. I thought it stopped like decades ago.
You.
Oh my god. Well, after she's finished watching this show, you can say, so, well, I do know a podcast you listen to that offers commentary and insight on it.
No. I discourage my own family from listening to my podcast for many reasons.
Oh god, I threaten them with violence if they ever want to listen to it. Like, no, we're not having this discussion.
No.
I know you're listening, my sisters out there who I'm not going to name. Don't talk to me about this podcast. Keep your hands off it, please. Right. Anyway. Oh boy. Right. Okay. So Mirror's question, and we have two actually. One of which I feel like I already answered these though. But the first one is: was there anything you wanted from this show that you didn't get? I actually have two answers for this one. The first one is the obvious one, which is I wanted Domeki in the OP. The final episode's OP should have had Domeki in it. After she was inducted into the Eizouken. Like, that's your opening moment. They're like, Domeki, you've done a great job. You can just see Asaka's like reaching up and struggling to get to her shoulder, like to pat her on it, because she's so tiny. And then, you go to the OP after she's inducted, and she's joining in with all of it. I really wanted that to happen, but it didn't. If we ever get a season 2, which I'd be totally okay with, by the way, then for my money, that should be a thing, that Domeki gets inducted at the start of like season 2, and that's your new OP. It's like an easy breezy style thing that's brand new, but it's got her in it. The second thing I want to say, the other answer is no. But if there's one thing I really want to applaud this show for, it's always doing something new and funny with its characters, which also then still sticks to their pre-established like skits. Like the ways in which Asaka, does the gremlin stuff, or for example, with Kanamori doing the angle grinder, which was completely unexpected, but paradoxically is completely in keeping with everything we've seen of her before. When she said that she would solve things with money and/or violence. So anything that I, in theory, could suggest, I don't think I would want actually to go into the show because I think the creators have such a great handle on the character beats that they've created through Asakusa and company, and they know how best to use them. That, hey, you know what? You just keep doing what you're doing. I trust you. I trust you on that.
Yeah. I'm struggling to think of anything because I think. Well, I mean, I think just more. More. Either more of the same or more of them in different situations. I mean, I wouldn't mind, having the girls hang out doing something different. I wouldn't mind having the girls hang out and make more anime. I just want to spend more time with them. But only if... It's funny, like, I want more, but I'm in no hurry for more. I want... I'm willing to wait for quality. Like, I want to make sure that if we get more animated, it needs to be in the same voice. Whether that is the mangaka's sort of, like, just kind of channeled through Yuasa, like Yuasa's just waving them on through, or it's a combination creatively of Science Saru, like, just, like, kind of going to town on the source material and adding details. Whatever it is, whatever special magical blend or formula has been concocted for this, I would very much like it to remain in place. Like, as much as I want more, if it means sacrificing kind of the feel of this show to get more, I don't want that. I'd be very content with what we have. I don't think that there's anything in these two kind of story arcs that we got that I would really change very much. I mean, I think, I kept thinking, I hope that they don't go outside of the confines of this. I hope that there's not some kind of conflict, or I hope that there's not, like an origin story. And like, then we would get it, and it would be delivered in this incredible way that felt really in keeping with everything. And so, yeah, I can't really think of anything that they did. I mean, sure, like I did want Domeki and the OP. But otherwise, like, I don't know. I think it was just, I mean, the show got it just right. I mean, it was the Goldilocks of anime. Like, it really did hit everything pitch perfect, and always left me feeling just really great. I mean, whether it was like pumped up, chilled out, anything in between, it always left me feeling positive. And that's the thing that I loved about it. Also, while I'm thinking about it, I don't know if there will be time to talk about this later or not, but just want to like shout out the music of the show, because like we haven't talked all that much about it, and I'm pulling up the list now to see who is credited with the music. It is Urutaichi, I'm sorry. So Urutaichi, props to you, my man. Like, you killed it. And the only other music credit that they have is the Kick Heart movie. So I suppose it's one of the things I haven't seen that Yuasa's done. I suppose I should check it out. But yeah, like, this show, I feel like it would have lost like a lot without the music that it has. Like, it really lended to like the sense of discovery and the real kind of like playful, imaginative vibe that was going on, and like everything. And there was such unique instrumentation. Like, it sounded like almost nothing else like that I have heard in an anime soundtrack. It made me think of like what other really weird idiosyncratic soundtracks, like, I don't know, like Akira gave me that feeling too. I'm like, wow, nothing else sounds like this movie. This music is balls. Like, it's crazy. And that's an amazing segue actually for Mira's next question, which goes. Did I just say this music is balls? I don't know what that means.
I think you meant baller.
Leave it in.
Oh, that's getting quoted out of context. I know that much. But the next one goes something a bit like this. Will you still listen to the OP every Sunday? I know I will. That's from Mira. To which my answer is no. I will listen to it every day.
I knew it was coming. I feel like I will definitely revisit it. Absolutely. It's amazing. Like, and I can't say that I looked at it every time, but I kept the music on. I kept the music on because the music is tremendous. I mean, I have not much else to add really on that point, other than I hope that we get a proper OST release at some point, because I can totally see like listening to some of this stuff, like, for doing work or studying, or like let's just call it the new lo-fi hip-hop beats. Well, it's so unique. Like, I could see it becoming almost like a self-parody. Like, anytime like you were suggesting an idea, like if I had a soundboard, I would turn on the Greatest World music as you talked about the idea. I mean, it could become, because it just has such a unique flavor. Like, I mean, it's so recognizable. It's not just another orchestral thing. It's not just another metal soundtrack or acoustic kind of sparse thing. Like, it is so readily identifiable as the Eizouken music.
Mm-hmm. And I have to mention as well, like, when we talk about the music, it's worth remembering that although there is the in-universe explanation that there is music created for the shorts that the Eizouken create, that's still made by someone in real life. Mm-hmm. So this music is great not only for what it brings to the show in its own right, but also what they understood of the material, the characters. So it kind of gets meta, you know, like we drill down almost Inception-like into the next layer. And I really think that shows the craft on display here. They were able to accomplish both of those things simultaneously to such a high standard.
Absolutely. I mean, you could say that about almost any element of the show, that the just high standards of quality. And from what I know about the studio, I think what I'm about to say is like my fears are pretty allayed. But I'm hoping that the crew did not push themselves to the breaking point to give us the standard that we have become so accustomed to in this show. Because I do not want them, these fine folks, looking like the Eizouken the morning before Comet A. They do not need to be looking like that.
Or just, as we've discussed before, like, you know, how the industry itself is not really, you know, the best environment for supporting creators, particularly in terms of, like, wages and such, you know, and living standards, and also the unreasonable workloads upon them. So I think in the end, like, you know, I said at length before on this podcast about how I was concerned about Eizouken was not necessarily practicing what it preaches, so to speak. In terms of, hey, this is all really, like, cool doing the creative process and making an anime, but in reality it's hard work. And yet, at the very end of it, you know what? There's been a lot of hard graft done by the girls in it.
Yeah.
Even despite everything. And that's indeed, like, the final moment of this episode where, like, something does inevitably go wrong. But they make the best of it, which is something I'll come to in a bit. So I'm ultimately okay with it in the end as presented. I think that for the tone the show was going for, the sense of humour it had, but also the sense of joy, that it would have been disingenuous for it to have gone any further, really, in my opinion, into the realm of, like, deep divisions between the trio, or, like, pairs in the trio itself, you know, also going too hard in on the drudgery of making anime and what it does to people, like, psychologically and physically, in terms of the demands it puts on them. I mean, that is still there. It acknowledges that, certainly. But there's a point in which I think if it had gone too far, it would have clashed with the tone the show was otherwise trying to set. So, yeah, bravo to Science Saru for treading the line pretty much all the way to the end, pretty flawlessly, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess I should address that too, because I'm the one who's been beating that drum, you know, different times. I think I need to have a real hard think about it to really kind of get my thoughts in order, because I just finished watching episodes 11 and 12 for the first time right before we record, as I'm always want to do typically. But I want to say I agree with you. Like, that's my initial gut, is like that, keeping in mind that this is still, at the end of the day, like a school club that's being presented. And since it is still a school club and not like the anime industry as such, like, I think that creates a little bit of necessary distance. You know, like, we're not, where it, like you said, it doesn't feel... It doesn't feel like it's smiling and hiding something behind its back, or it doesn't feel like it's just trying to be a puff piece. Like, I think there are times when it does, in its own way, lampshade that anime, like, working in it, is extremely difficult. And is very, very, very demanding, perhaps too demanding, for people to live that way 24/7, 365 days a year, even if that's what they want to do. I think the show touches on it. I just have to, again, I think really think about, does it touch on it enough? Like, but again, just off the top of the dome, coming off everything fresh, I think, again, the show, first and foremost, wanted to be a celebration of the process of creating anime. It wanted to educate, and I think it accomplished both of those goals. But I do think that in small ways, in ways that were not ham-fisted, it said to the audience, hey, this is not this glamorous, painless thing. This is something that great sacrifice is required to do it, and it's often required because conditions are not ideal. And I think that is kind of the point worth sticking on, because I think if conditions in the industry were better, what would be asked of people would obviously be less taxing on them. Have a more healthy environment. But because, I think the school was maybe kind of a good setting to show that, like, maybe the production process can be overly fragmented in some ways, and that, lack of communication between different departments can cause these massive screw-ups that end up really almost tanking a production. Like, that's pretty rough. I mean, I don't think that it didn't really talk too much about, like, labor and what's appropriate and what's fair. But I think to really finish really quickly. But I think, it, because it is the kind of show it is, talking about what it's talking about, I think, it affected me and you in such a way that we started thinking about this more, even though we already knew about it, and asking more questions and seeing how we could get back. And maybe that's the intended effect. Maybe that's the idea, is like not to hammer home a sort of despairing point, but create something within the viewer that a kind of curiosity, maybe, to cause them to look into things and see, like, oh, like, wow, this is really bad. This should not be this way. Because certainly people, like, in Science Saru talk about how rough the industry is if you ask them.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. The more I think about it, like, I think that because it's in the school setting, as you say, in the club setting, like, it is very much an indie and an amateur work combined into one. So I think that it would have to have a change in setting in order to actually properly address those issues if the show had wanted to go in that route to begin with. But it's not. So I think that the problems they face are ones that are sensible in terms of the environment that they're working in. But I would expect that if, we got a season, say, 5 or whatever, where the trio finally go and make their own full-blown independent studio, that we would then see them come into focus, like dealing with production committees, for example. But I do think as well that Eizouken as a show, to me, still wants to teach you something, and that's to pay attention to what's going on, both in terms of the actual, like, animation that's being used, but also the demands it places on the creators as well. And I would hope that the takeaway lesson, therefore, as you said, Doc, is, okay, I can see that's difficult, and then you go and watch a completely different show, which is not about making anime, but nonetheless was in itself created by someone, and you might think to yourself, I wonder how difficult it was to make this scene. And you might, have your interest peaks and, look at further into that. And then you start discovering, oh God, this is a lot more, like, arduous than I realised. Because I think that it's fair to say that you and we came into this show with some knowledge already of the difficulties and the problems the industry faces. So we already came in armed with that knowledge, but I do think Eizouken provides a framework for people to just be a bit more critical and, you know, how shall we say it, to take a closer look at what they're consuming, both in terms of like how it was made, like, you know, artistically, but also how it was made in terms of the human cost and demands as well.
Yeah, I still have issues with the way episode 4 didn't stick the landing for me. I thought I still think the message was a little muddled in terms of, you know, that the human cost was sort of downplayed because, it was all worth it in the end. And just my own kind of point of view, like that just didn't sit well with me. But I do think there were other scenes in the show that balanced that out pretty well, like when they got paid for doing the robot anime short. Do you remember they barely made any money?
Yeah.
For all, like that.
I asked Asuka's response to like the 1.5 million yen or however much it was. That still sticks. That's still there in my memory.
So, I mean, all things considered, like, was it perfect on this score? Like, I mean, to me, just the way I am, you can never have too many of the kind of messages that hey, these people are being exploited. Hey, labor treated unfairly in this industry, as in all industries, right? But all told, I think it did an okay job. And again, like you know, put so well, you said it way better than I could, that this show has done the job, and we know it's done the job because it's done it in us, of fostering like that curiosity in the brain about like, well, how bad is this really? Like, what is the human cost of making anime? And you know, you don't have to look very far to find the anime, you know, dormitory project and the new system making project, just to be like, wow, they have these really concrete statistics about what animators make per drawing, $2, and per day and per year, and they work so hard, but they make so little. This is seems profoundly unjust, and that's why, like, about to plug our own self here. That's why we give 20% of our Patreon earnings to the new system making project, because we believe in the anime dormitory folks' sort of ability to create change in this space.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Definitely do check out their latest project, by the way. I think now more than ever, if you can spare some money, send it their way. It would definitely be appreciated by them. But you mentioned something, Doc, about how, you know, you said I brought up that the show educates you and makes you take a more critical eye. This is now as good a time as any for me to get into my first talking point, which relates to episode 12 specifically. And let's talk about the actual showing of Shibahama UFO Wars here. Because if there's one thing I want to know about watching this, there are no asides in it. There's no commentary from, like, director's commentary, even if you want to call it that, from Asakusa, from Kanamori, or from Mizusaki. We get to see pretty much the entire thing as it is presented to the audience, who we see, you know, put the Blu-rays or the DVDs in their players. Like, for example, the restaurant owner, the art club, even Mizusaki's grandmother, who I would have sworn from implication had passed away in the interim.
I think it was the vice principal.
That was the vice. I'm sure that was Mizusaki's grandmother.
Because
I could be wrong.
The old lady, the elderly lady watering the flowers in episode 11. I believe that was her that put the disc in.
I could be wrong on that. But anyway, that's mooting, really. The point is, though, like, first off, I love, again, how it's bringing us into this show and the short itself by putting us on the same level as the audience here. We're seeing it, you know, as they do. Now, granted, this is in complete opposition to episode 4's presentation, where the audience, you know, we see, like, the casing flying out of the screen, for example. But I was okay with it in that case because that to me felt like it, the show selling to us the impact it was having on them. Like, that was the Eizouken's first like big test, which they passed. So we were on board at that point, and so were the people who had seen it. But obviously there were people trying to get in the way, like the student council. But this time around, we're now aligned with the rest of the audience members. We're seeing it as they see it, which in of itself is a really neat point. I like that we simply get to see the finished product as is, without, any asides or the like. But then I think it goes further than that, and I think it actually goes to show a really healthy respect for the audience on the part of the show itself, because it's asking you, through showing Shibahama UFO Wars, to apply everything it's taught you. To apply everything that this show has told you about what it's done to see. Oh, I recognise that. That's repeated animation. Oh, I recognise this as a directional touch in order to, show the duality of the two forces. Like, the fact that, we see so many repeated animations of the Kappas and the humans, just mirrored, for example, with the obvious aesthetic changes that they have. Like, that is both in of itself, in terms of its creation, a cost-saving measure and a time-saving measure, but it helps reinforce Asaka's point that the film now has, that they are, basically the same. They're just fighting over, miscommunication. So I really, really admire the show for having, the respect it has for the audience that I find so lacking in so many other shows, particularly the ones that, fan service fests. Like, it has said to you throughout all of 12 episodes thus far, we're going to tell you so many things about how this works. We're going to show you, like, for example, how things are put together, how tweeting works, how audio is produced. We're going to show you the creative process in terms of inspiration and locations. And then it's not so much a final exam for the audience, as in us, but rather it's more of a, now, let's see what you make of this on your own terms with everything that we have taught you. Yeah. And I will say, I don't know if this is intentional or not, but I got a very strong mixture of both Miyazaki and Mamoru Oshii vibe and Mamoru Oshii vibes in this. Like, particularly with the construction of the underground, mechanics. Like, it felt a little Angel's Egg to me, which was not the mood I was expecting to see in Shibahama UFO Wars. But it's funny because this will come back to the point I'm going to make about Asaka's decision to change the story in a little while. I think it really, really works for the piece that they were trying to go for. It was kind of like, more in the end it felt like very somber, but I think it works. And and bear in mind, like, that's in like stark contrast to the Tank Girl fight, which in of itself was just more of a demonstration, but it wasn't like any deep like examination of humanity or anything like that. And then of course you get the robot one, which was just more giant robots are cool. What more do you need than that? But yeah, like, kudos to the show's creators and also the mangaka, who I presume delivered this in much a similar way, for presenting it as is, which is great in terms of aligning us with the audience, but also showing the respect to us as viewers that, hey, I hope you've taken something away from this, something that you will use going forward when you critically analyse, or even just casually consume a piece of work. Like, you'll have a greater appreciation for what you watch. So 2 thumbs up on that point alone.
Yeah, I mean, it was a beautiful story, wasn't it? Like, I was really impressed at like the storytelling in their short and the kind of story that was told. Just like it was not a simple like solution. It was really kind of tragic. Like, there's two individuals on different sides of the war, like. Of a long-standing war like that. Actually, I'm sorry, not a long-standing war. A war that like I can't remember if it's been going on for a long time or not. But those civilizations were meant to be like at peace with one another. It's just that their method of communication, it just broke down after so long of each civilization on their own deciding to be insular and concerned with their own needs first. Over time, they just forgot about talking to each other. And you
know what? It sounds like the last time I tried running a raid guild in World of Warcraft. Just to break down communication over time, and we ended up fighting each other after some server transferred. The pricks! No, it's all fiction. That didn't actually happen, although there was a fair bit of guild drama in my time in World of Warcraft. I miss those days a little bit, I must say. Not for the drama.
Oh, and I really enjoyed how like the ships would just fly in front of their ally to protect their quote unquote enemy, and it was just so lovely. It was a really lovely.
There was something very organic about the Kappa UFOs, like floating almost like petals coming off a tree. That's the impression I got when they first came out of the water.
Yeah, almost a jellyfish as well, propelling themselves upward.
Yeah, and then we get uses of repeat animation in the thing as well, like with the drones walking out of the assembly line. I mean, it's the same animation cycle for each of them repeated over and over, but I'm okay with that. And then when the human ships launch, again, repeat animation cycle, you can see it there, but it works.
Totally.
And also, even the very... Sorry, go on.
Oh, yeah, I was just to say, I feel like you could tell in a lot of cases, oh, this cut was done by Mizusaki. Look at how shiny the ship is. Look at all this fancy detail. And then some of them would be a lot rougher and be like, well, I bet this wasn't a Sakusa cut.
Exactly. And also, God, what was I going to say now? It'll come to me later. Never mind. So yeah, that's my first talking point. I have to say, as a work in its own, like, now I remember. I also loved how it even got a little experimental and a little, dare I say, Lynchian, with how, we had the diagrams, like, showing the Kappa, like, history and such, and the arrows pointing from one side of the screen to the other. Mm-hmm. That was unusual, but I appreciate it. I think it works for the piece, like, because it's not, there's no spoken dialogue in it, really, to be quite honest, which I would have thought that there was actually voice actors being cast for it, but I guess they must have cut them in the end.
There definitely was. but I think, I guess that was part of how, like, screwed up the audio track was that, like, it was just the music and they didn't get the track with the V.
I suppose it's time for me to confess I'm the one who supplied them with that audio track. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do it.
Oh, no. No. How could you?
Hey, it works out for the best in the end, let's be fair. Just as
there was
planned.
only like one vocal, and it was like some people screaming for like half a second. That was the only vocal. The rest was all music. It was really, and it was like the dialogueless nature of it helped helped it pop, I think, and give it, like you said, a sort of experimental vibe.
Yeah, it works really, really well. I mean, the other two shots, like, the robot one, really, in my mind, is very simplistic in terms of its story. And you know what? That's not me dissing it, by the way. I'm just pointing it out what it is, and it works. Like, hey, there's a crab monster. Let's go send our robot to fight it. What more do you need? Come on. The Tangirl one as well, similar kind of thing. But here, like, I think Asakusa really stepped up to the plate to actually deliver on a good, solid story. It's not anything that I would say you've not heard of before. I mean, the prisoner swap kind of thing, I'm sure, has been done in many works of fiction. But so what? Like, originality is dead. I mean, go read Joseph Campbell if you want, to have the autopsy report on that. But I still think it worked really well that for the first, like, genuinely heavy story-driven, like, thing that she came up with, it was pretty solid. And again, like, the reason I'm telling you all here, folks, is because the show, Eizouken invites us to comment on it. Indeed, Mizusaki actually says, I wish I had some genuine criticism.
She does.
So it opens up the floor for us to look at it and examine it as its own work on its own merits. And I think there's plenty to it that they've clearly thought about, not just beyond in terms of, like, the animation fidelity. So yeah, bravo to the material, bravo to Science Saru for doing that and for treating the audience with a significant amount of respect, which I really, really appreciate.
So I think we can agree, Shadon, on my next point is that I think Science Saru has given us, like, not only the character of the year, but maybe the new character of the decade, like the avatar for all of anime moving forward in Sayaka Kanamori. Yeah.
Well, can I, what, I've been thinking of something, actually, because I was going to talk about this. Do you remember when you and I did the Valhalla podcast?
Of course.
I think I mentioned to you in that it felt to me like the character of Dana Zane was someone who existed in the creator's head, and they just had to unleash them on the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that they knew that they had spun like gold there. And I feel the same about Kanamori, to be quite honest. Like, I think Asakusa is great. I think Mizuzaki is fine in her own right, but sure. I think that she's more grounded than anything else. She's not prone to like sticking out appropriate enough given her character, actually, as it happens, which is not, I'm not putting her down, by the way. I think she's a fine character, but there's a very clear hierarchy in terms of like the memorable characters for me in Eizouken, and Kanamori is definitely top, with Asakusa coming second. So I would agree with you though, like Kanamori is...
Robot Club Captain Guy make the list of memorable characters.
I'll get back to you on that one.
Oh man. Oh, I'm digressing from my own point, but like it made me, this character discussion made me think. Are you satisfied with the sort of lack of screen time that the student council got in the last episode? I mean, and it's impossible how I think about like how to fit them in, but like they seem to be asserting themselves more as a kind of greater force in the story as time went on, but they didn't really have a lot to do with the finale. They kind of got, they did the little raid, and then Kanamori basically just killed them off screen, so to speak.
I'm okay with that. I think that they had their time really in episode 10, and then to a lesser extent episode 11. But I do think it actually fits the show that the real problem that they run into at the end is one of an unforeseen like complication.
Yes.
Because there's a lot like Kanamori like defeating the student council. That was something she could plan for, and she did. So it's no surprise that they would be like the penultimate final boss. But the final boss, as to me makes more sense, is the one that we've got a deadline to meet. We've got 10 hours, 12, 13, 14, however many it is. And this audio track, it's great for a different show entirely, not this one.
Yes.
So what in the flying blue F do we do? I think it actually fits the show's... I think it fits what the show's trying to say, especially given what happens as a result of it, which is that it enforces the idea of art coming from adversity. Like, sometimes you can do more with less. Like, Asakusa actually, in my opinion, legitimately makes the story better through the change she implements, where she concedes, hey, you know what? It's not as simple as, they reconcile and it's all gravy. Like, no, the point is that they have to keep on fighting. And, to try and make things better, they can't simply be complacent and let it go. I'm like, for a gremlin like her, that Kappa. Is a very... Especially someone who... Okay, Kappa, yes. Kappa gremlin, there we go. We'll split the difference. For someone like her, I'm not saying Asakusa is immature, far from it, but she's also not really had a mind for story and, like, theme and idea, really, in my opinion, or at least hasn't really ever kind of fleshed out beyond the basics, like conceptuals.
Yeah.
I thought that was a very, very cogent point for her. Although I have to ask you, Doc, you obviously couldn't have missed the fact that the Kappa story was originally based on her experiences with Kanamori. Mm-hmm. Like, two people who from disparate sides coming together. Do you think actually... In fact, no, I've just realised it's even more genius. Do you think it actually is very sagely on her part to recognise that she and Kanamori will always continue to be butting heads if they were to continue doing the Eizouken project? Because they'll always find ways to disagree, like her overproduction versus her doing creative stuff. Do you think that maybe helps the story still gel with her own experience? I think it does. And I think that makes it even better. Holy shit.
So is what you're asking if, like, the Kappa-human conflict is kind of reflective of Kanamori and Asakusa's relationship to some degree?
Yes.
Their working relationship?
Well, I think the initial draft of it before the change was that they misunderstood each other, but then came to coexist. That's why she calls it coexistence, as the theme of the work. But if there's one thing, again, the show has made clear as it's gone along, is that they continually do butt heads. Not in a, overly, like, yelly, shouty way. I mean, Kanamori does try to strangle her, but we let bygones be bygones. It's neither here nor there that she tried to murder her. So I think that, the change still reflects the reality of their relationship, which is not that, they got to that starting point and then it ended. They don't have to conflicts anymore. Rather, they'll continue butting heads. But that's fine. That's part of the creative process. There is always going to be compromise and sacrifice and mutual understanding that's necessary. So I think that Asakusa realizing that and making the change in her work is also reflective of her understanding her relationship with Kanamori better, which I think is super neat. Like, I'm glad that they kept it, the parallel between the two even after the change.
Yeah, I think you put it actually really well. Like, she feels like this fully, like, fleshed out character, like, that was inhabiting someone's mind and just brought to life, fully formed. And I don't know if I started to say, like, she feels like a real, but, like, I don't know if she she feels really real or realistic, but, like...
to be fair, how many people do you know who kick down doors of angle grinders to get DVDs made of anime?
Too few.
I know a few.
Too few.
No, she's larger than life is how to describe it.
Totally. But that's really great. And she's larger than life, but she still has, she still has multiple kind of dimensions to her. Mm-hmm. Like, she's not totally straightforward to be, like, simplistic. Like, there's stuff going on there, you know what I mean? Like, she's not just simply, like, the gruff manager with the heart of gold, because... Does she have a heart of gold? I'm not sure. It's buried deeply under there.
She'd have pawned it off if she had one.
But
that for a fact.
That's the thing. She
has a grounded origin, I think, is what you need to say. Like, because her origin story as Minimori is eminently relatable. Like, a place of familiarity that is ultimately taken from her through forces outside of her control, and she, as Alex put it, will play within the system, bend rules as necessary in order to make sure it doesn't happen again.
And, like, she, regardless of what she may say, she really cares about the other members of that club. Like, she really, really does. And I think it would not work, this character, if she was totally selfish and completely driven by money for her own kind of gain.
Mm-hmm.
But
what she values is not money but security, in my opinion.
Sure, and like creativity, like, not like, because she's not a creative, but like producing something and making something, and it's like she said, there's no better barometer of quality, right? That is what she would say than how much you get paid for what you make.
I mean, you do say she's not creative, but I mean, to come up with that solution to getting the DVDs made by angle grinding their way through this, what I presume to be a mob boss's door. I mean, that's a pretty creative solution, in my opinion.
That was very good. That was so good. Hi, I'm here with the data.
Stephen King couldn't have dreamed up a better scene. God. He's tried, and it doesn't even compare.
I feel like, I mean, as much as the show is, like, about imagination and the power of kind of the synthesis of, like, art and life, and, like, what art can do for you, and how experience informs your creativity, and, like, imagination being this thing that is, like, just human magic. Like, those things are, like, the domain of Asakusa chiefly, but also Mizusaki gets to play around in that. And yet, the personality that I'm going to think of when I think of this show is, I'm going to think of Kanamori, like, because her personality is so huge and, like, overshadows the other two, and really provides them a platform to help get done their creative stuff. And that seems fitting, because the show really is about, like, showing you everything it takes for, like, human beings to, like, all that they undergo and all that cost, like, to bring you the entertainment. And so who better to be like the kind of representative of the show in my mind than the person who made it all together, who was the logistics person.
Absolutely. Right. My next talking point. Let's talk about the origin story of Kanamori and Asakusa meeting and becoming... I'm going to use the word friends here. Like, they call it comrades, but I think that Asakusa is using the term comrades in the same way that she views the rest of the world, which is that she applies this kind of, like, coat of paint with how she interacts it to, like, give it, like, a different language. Like, the way that nerds do, like you and I do, like, you know, when we call... you know, start game, like, how people might even gamify things. That kind of thing, you know, where they apply a layer of fiction to put a spin on reality, which is what Asuka's is all about. Now, there are two things that I should note in this scene. One of which is the exercise that they're doing in the physical education class, which is literally leaning on, you know, each other. Like, you know, I'm going to bend backwards and I'm going to support you and vice versa. Apart from the fact that Kanamori is already twice Asakusa's size, I don't know how that would have worked. But the teacher is correct in the assertion that, you know, like, you can't do this alone. Now, that's the obvious message. Like, it's pretty crystal to me. But what I think is really noteworthy is that when Asakusa goes with Kanamori and takes the train, she knows as she goes to the train station, I've never been on one before because I don't do well in crowds. Like, I would want to go with a friend. And then what's her reaction when she's on the train? She is, you know, excited by it. She's like, I didn't realize these things were so awesome.
Yeah.
But I think that is in itself, like, you know, another way of looking at the relationship that they have, in that Kanamori empowers her to go out into the world and then be inspired by the things that she sees around her. And I think that's a really key point to, like, their relationship, in that it's not just that, like, Kanamori, you know, is able to make Asakusa do things and keep her in check, like, you know, to make sure that the job gets done, but also gives her a power, like, you know, or empowers her to go out into the wider world and learn from it. Like, that to me feels like a pretty revelationary moment for her, like, you know, that she gets to enjoy the trains for the first time and then start doodling all these amazing things, like, it's a black hole generator, you know? So, yeah, I love that. I love the subtlety of that moment, how it makes the point that, you know, we do need support, but it's not just in the literal sense of, you know, like, producing and stuff like, but also to give us confidence to go out into the world and do things with it as a result. So that's why I think that they are truly inseparable. Like, and in turn, you know, like, Kanamori, I do think that, as you say, she does get a lot of her friendship with Asakusa. And so yeah, I really, really like that moment, how it played into all of that. And I think it's true for a lot of creatives who are anxious or nervous that, you know, sometimes they do need a friend who might not necessarily be a creative themselves, but someone who can push them onwards.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Like, yeah, they're more than just people that like to hang out together. Like, they sort of help fuel the things that, like, give the things that give each of their lives kind of color, and I don't say meaning because that sounds a little extreme, but, like, the things that they look forward to about getting up in the morning, right? I'm gonna create something today, or, like, I could, you know, make some money and or, like, help produce a thing, help other people, like, help make something happen, get stuff done. Like, each of Asakusa helps Kanamori do that, and Kanamori helps Asakusa do that, and so it's like this. I don't know. It feels like that. Maybe that's part of why they're nakama, not just tomodachi, not just, like, buddies, but they're, like, friends, because, like, they're not just people that get together and chat and have some things in common. Like, they drive each other forward and help lift each other up in terms of, like, their passions, which is cool, which is a more, like, classical Aristotelian definition of friendship, which we don't have to get into, but yes, I like that. And Mizusaki's cool too.
Oh yeah, I feel like her part in the show kind of sort of came to an end with the resolution of her own arc. But that's not a bad thing necessarily.
Yeah, it was a really important arc.
Oh, definitely. But then we just need to have time to let the other two shine and finally see them, grow as people that they are. So yeah, I think that scene works wonderfully and paid off really well, especially over the course of the following episode as well.
Yeah,
right,
selling leaves.
Selling leaves. So we're grilling fish and putting on them. So okay, over to you, Doc.
Oh, what do I want to say? I didn't take any notes for this one, so because I'm just not in a space to be to have like notes laid out and have the ability to take notes like I usually do. But I talked about their advisor, who, by the way, can I just say, shouts to that guy. Shouts to the neck man who wanted his shoulders to
his
be
beard was weighing
up.
heavy.
Because now we see that he's sort of the unseen he's an unseen hero as well. Like, he has to be at school whenever they're at school, which is constantly. So he's just like basically living in this old beat up car playing video games all the time instead of at home doing something, I don't know, that he probably would rather be doing. So shouts to you, heavy beard guy. But I love his message of like make work like play, and sort of kind of make it feel that way and add that into it. And there are of course really corny ways to do that, but I think that the Eizouken found a perfect way that fit their work to do that, because they really benefit from these field trips, and this is a huge part of what helped tie together all those loose threads in Asakusa's head, and ended up because we were like, she's getting distracted again, she's thinking up a new story, it's not connecting, but like they all ended up connecting. And so it was good that she like had all those threads to begin with, and because she was allowed to like kind of relax and do work in a different way that's not just like sit at desk, produce, it was able to kind of unlock something for her, and she was able to make the best thing she's ever made, and that rules. And that is something that we could all stand to do a little more of, like, and yeah, I mean, bosses of the world, watch this show.
Exactly. Right then, I have one final talking point, and I suppose it's appropriate and fitting for me to use this as the final one. I want to talk about the ending scene. I have long spoken on this podcast of the idea of endless endings, and I've spoken at the very start of this particular episode about the fact that I do feel sad that we're not going to get any more Eizouken in anime form, at least, but I'm okay with that. And this ending is a big part of the reason why, because what more fitting a way to end this magnificent show than to have it go out on the greatest world, literally. Mm-hmm. And what I love about it as well is that it starts off with Asakusa bursting into the Eizouken Film Club and clearly excited about something. This, to me, with the following scene of the greatest world and all the things we've seen them add to it, like the spaceships, the robot, the Kappa UFOs, all that stuff, it's the implication that they're going to keep building and adding to it. They're going to keep growing their world and cultivating it, adding new things into it all the time. And that's why I'm so happy with the ending, even though I'm not happy to see the show end. Mm-hmm. Because it speaks of, much greater things to come that we can now imagine. We can imagine doing whatever they want, like they're going to keep on going. And that, for me, like, leaving us wanting more, but with the promise that more is something that will happen, it's just not going to be canonical necessarily. That's fantastic. What an amazing way to end the show. It just felt so perfect. Like the most pitch perfect ending to probably any anime short of like my other top two that I mentioned, save for maybe Land of the Lustrous, because it technically isn't over. But yeah, like, what more do I need to say than like, well, we got introduced to the Greatest World in episode 1 and we leave, but we see how much more has been built up into it as a result of all of the things that have transpired.
I know. And I love that, like, we got to see like people walking out onto their balconies after watching it, and then like the little shoots of it appearing around the edges, the buildings popping up. That was so rad.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, if you want a picture or like a moment from episode 12 that sums up my mood for this show, I think I might mention it, but I'll just mention it again. Cozy Asakasa, just where she's, got the big blanket around her with the bunny in, like, close to her, and she's just content at watching her own work with her friends, like, they've got pizza and all that. There's something really, really cozy about all of it, and it just made me feel very chill and very happy as a result of that. I was smiling through that entire scene, so...
Yeah, I mean, it was like, oh man, it was such a good ending. Like, and I, she saying like, there's still a lot we can do. There's still a lot we can improve on, and like, so there's a lot that the club can improve on. Obviously, like they can, make bigger, better work. They could make work larger in scope. They could make deeper work. They could improve the production process. They could improve communication between departments. They could become professionals, but like, also, I like to think that this is like, a little message here to the anime industry. Like, there's still a long way to go, and there's still a lot more that we, as professional animators, can do to get better. But not just professional animators, I mean, but like, kind of what I actually do mean is like that overarching structure that is the anime industry, that is the thing that like, really exploits those people. So like, it's sort of a rallying cry to animators to keep fighting the good fight, but also like, hey, production committees and people holding the money, like, you have a long way to go too. You could do so much better. Like, I feel like it was just like the perfect line to end it on, is like, what we've seen has been amazing. It's really been amazing, and it's not over. There's nowhere to go but up. Like, we can keep improving together. Maybe if we just don't make the mistake that the Kappas and humans made, maybe if we talk to each other and let each other know what we need, maybe we won't fall into that deep-seated conflict.
Absolutely. Right, I'm all done on talking points, Doc. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Not really, man. I mean, I'm sad. I am sad it's over. As much as I 100% am behind what I had said before. Like, please don't give me subpar Eizouken. I only want the best Eizouken. I will be sad to see these three go. I mean, I have truly enjoyed spending time with them every single week. It's been a highlight of 2020, which is a bad year. But they have made it good in spats.
They have indeed. Right then, I suppose that brings us to the end of this particular podcast. Thank you very much to everyone who's listened. I suppose, should we reveal now what we'll be covering next?
Sure. Throw it out there.
So, it's a little show called Listeners, which is coming out in the next anime season. Do you have more info about it to hand, Doc? Because I vaguely remember the premise from when we discussed it, but with everything that's been going on, like, it's completely left my memory.
Will you pull up the premise while I say that it is, I believe it's a MAPPA produced show, which, we have seen some good MAPPA on this podcast. I have seen plenty of good MAPPA in my lifetime. They have some very talented folks there, and they have Daisato as the head writer, who, has written scripts for a few little anime, such as Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex and Cowboy Bebop. So, Daisato, pretty accomplished writer. Excited that they are doing this one, that they are the head writer on this. It should be super should be super interesting and well written. Like, I recall the premise being good. Do you have it to hand?
I do indeed. So, according to my anime list, the synopsis goes something like this. Set in a world where the concept of music ceases to exist. Oh, God. I thought things couldn't get much worse, but woofed. I don't think I'd be okay with David Bowie suddenly, like, being wiped from history. But anyway, the story begins when a boy...
a postman, you know what I mean?
But the story begins when a boy encounters Mew. Oh god, didn't we have someone like that in the past, or am I thinking of someone else? I might be thinking of Mew from Elfen Lied. Anyway, when a boy encounters Mew, a mysterious girl who possesses an audio input jack in her body. Oh shit! It's Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes. No.
No, that's been done before.
No. I'm joking. The two intermingle with the history of rock music, yes, and embark on an unforgettable journey. Bit thin of a premise here, I admit, on Mal, but I will take it because it's, it seems like a road trip that's centered around rock music. What more could you possibly want with that? I would be remiss, by the way, if I didn't mention that Mew is voiced by Rie Takahashi, who is the voice of Mash Kiryu in the various Fate Grand Order films and such. And I think, if I'm looking at this right... where is it? I'm sure that I saw it. She's also the voice of Amelia from ReZero.
Good voice actor. Good.
Indeed. So we'll be covering that as of when it starts airing, which I think might very well be next week. I'm sure we'll find out. But yeah, April the 4th, it says it starts here, according to Mel. Broadcast on a Saturday, no less. So it looks like we'll be doing our usual Monday slot for this one.
Good stuff.
Yep. Right. Well, that's it. Shall we take us away, Doc, if you would, please?
Well,
before we do
the episode,
oh God, we do. Yes, my head's so pickled. I'm going to say that for episode 11, I liked it a lot, as I did with all of them, but I do feel like some of the sections of it where they're wandering, like the waterways, for example, was more of the same, exploring, like, for inspiration, which does pay off, and don't get me wrong. But I didn't feel quite as engaged with those moments as I did, say, with the stuff with Kanamori and Asakusa. But that's just me as a character-driven kind of guy. So I will give that one... I'll give that one 4.5, Raccoon Dog catching nets out of 5, because there's an amazing moment when Asakusa gets netted by Kanamori.
Yes.
Who's that Pokemon? And then for episode 5, 5, what am I talking about? I've just spoiled my rating, haven't I? For episode 12, I am going to, in the end, give it 5 out of 5 paper bags over the head.
That was such a great, the publicity stunt will intrigue people. If they think that you have to hide your identity because you made this anime. Oh, Kanamori is a genius. I am gonna give I think I'm going to give I'm really stuck, man. I really liked both of these episodes so much, but I don't know if either one got me to the full 5.
Ooh. Descent in the ranks, I see.
I think I might go 4.75 for both of them. So a little higher than you on 11 and a little lower than you on the ending, but virtually
we split the difference.
Virtually top marks. It's basically for it's the way that I do that I feel like 5 stars for me works is if I have to ask, then it's probably not the full 5. I know it's 5.
Yeah, it's instincts kind of thing, isn't it? So I understand you on that, mate.
Yeah.
I still think you're wrong, but I understand you.
It could very well just be the environment that I'm watching in, because, shit be crazy right now. And out of sorts and discombobulated, Doc does not make for, an optimal anime viewer. So, could just be that, and take that under consideration. But I like them an awful lot. So 4.75 stolen leaves out of 5.
All right then. Well, I suppose that brings us to the end of this particular podcast. But you know what, folks? Like, if I'm actually going to steal this out from Doc here and take us out, because I've just had a thought.
Okay.
We, of course, are in difficult times all around for everyone right now. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. So I first off want to thank you for listening, you the viewer at home. I want to thank our patrons again for their continued support. And by the way, I mean financially, but rather just in terms of, helping form a part of our community and being great people to engage with. It's really been helping me through this. So thank you for that. I hope that, whoever's listening to this, that you make the best of a bad situation here. That's not, by the way, for me encouraging you to go out. Stay the fuck at home. Unless you absolutely must leave the house for reasons that the government will tell you to. Me and the government are not normally in alignment, but you know what I mean. But rather what I mean to say is that, take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, stay in touch with people, just ask them how they're doing, shoot the breeze with them, say some silly stuff, go watch some stuff together via group watches, however you want to do it, play some multiplayer games, all that kind of good stuff there. Do what you can. We will get through this. I am very certain of that. It's just going to be difficult for a time. And if I had one other piece of advice I would give, it's to have something in mind for when this is all over, something to look forward to, someone you might want to meet, or someplace you want to go that you otherwise felt you didn't want to do before. I'm certainly holding on to some of that stuff myself. But, when we close out these podcasts, we often end with that refrain from Macross, of embrace each other, everyone's the ends of the universe, which is, cheesy but likable in its own right.
I love it. Speak not an ill word of it.
I would not. But you know what? I think on this particular occasion, and given the show that we've just, covered, and the times it calls for, if there's one takeaway message that I can give you from Eizouken, it would, of course, be easy breezy. Good night, everyone.
Good night. We would like to thank Masa Soundworks for allowing us to use his track GPS for the intro to our podcast. You can find him on Twitter at MasoPuppy. We would like to thank Phil Dragash for our incredible podcast album artwork and Twitter banner. You can find him on Twitter at Phil Dragash. And of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't thank our incredible, lovely patrons. God bless you for your support. And if you would like to become a patron, head on over to patreon.com/Warui Deshou. Shouts to my wife and kids for always putting up with me. And for everyone listening out there, don't give up, fam. Find the courage to take one step forward.